friends.
Hi
Today
friends,
we are going to
welcome
do
to
a
my book review
over
club.
the story Pollyanna by Eleanor H. Potter. Now, the story Pollyanna. Let me explain to you about the story. Now, Pollyanna is the story of a young little girl named Pollyanna who is an orphan. She is adopted by her aunt, Miss Polly Harrington, who is very, very, very rich. Now, at the beginning, her aunt is very strict and dutiful. But at the end of the story, she turns out to be a completely different character, all because of the prognosticator Pollyanna's active and cheerful attitude. Today we are going to learn about chapter 1 and 2. So come on, let's dive in. Chapter 1 is called as Miss Polly. Now here it is shown as Miss Polly Harrington has entered the kitchen a little hurriedly this June morning. Miss Polly did not usually make hurried movements, but today she was hurrying, like actually hurrying. She has a maid called Nancy, who was washing dishes at the sink. She was looking up in surprise because Nancy had been working in Miss Polly's kitchen only for 2 months, but already she knew that her mistress did not usually hurry. Nancy, like that Miss Polly is calling her. She is calling her very sternly, very seriously. So by this, it seems as if she is going to tell Nancy about a very serious matter. So Nancy answered, "Yes, ma'am," but still she continued wiping the pitcher in her hand. "Nancy, here it's written, when I'm talking to you, I wish you to stop your work and listen to what I have to say." This also shows Miss Polly's dutiful and stern attitude. So now Nancy flushed miserably. She set the pitcher down with the cloth still about it, thereby nearly tipping it over, which did not add to her composure. So now Miss Polly is telling Nancy that she has to. Now, first of all, before this, let me tell you about Nancy. Nancy was coming from the corners, which was 6 miles away. And of course, she knew Miss Polly Harrington at that time as the only mistress of the old Harrington homestead. That was 2 months before. Now she knew Miss Polly as a stern, severe-faced woman who frowned if a knife clattered to the floor or if a door banged, but who never thought to smile even when knives and doors were in their place. "When you have finished your morning work, Nancy," now she is telling that when you have finished the morning work, you can clear the little room at the head of the stairs in the attic, and you have to make up the cot bed. You have to sweep the room, clean it, of course, after you clear out the trunks and boxes. Now, after this, Nancy is telling, "Yes, I will do that." Then she's asking that the things that I take out, where shall I put that? So, Miss Polly is telling, in the front attic. Now comes the important part. Now Miss Polly is hesitating, but after that she says that, "I may as well tell you, Nancy, my niece, Miss Pollyanna Whittier, is coming to live with me. She is 11 years old and will sleep in that room." So now Nancy is very happy, and from here on I'll tell you in short form. Nancy is very happy, and she is very happy that finally a child is coming, and it might brighten things up for Miss Polly, right? So she is thinking that she's telling, it'll be so nice, Miss Polly. And she's thinking in her mind of the sunshine her own little sisters made in the home at the corners. Nice? Well, that isn't exactly the word I should use, rejoined Miss Polly stiffly. So, now, okay. However, I intend to make the best of it, of course. I am a good woman, I hope, and I know my duty. So, here she is clearly mentioning that she is a very beautiful woman. Although until now, by her attitude, we already know that she is a beautiful woman. She is now explaining herself. So she is very happy. But after that, here it's written that there is a letter which she had received from the faraway western town. So that was where Miss Pollyanna was now. The letter was addressed to Miss Polly Harrington, Beldingsville, Vermont. So where is this Miss Polly Harrington? She is in Beldingsville in Vermont. And it read as follows. Here this letter is very long, but still I want to read it completely to you because this letter is very important. So here it read as follows. Dear ma'am, I regret to inform you that the Rev. John Whittier died 2 weeks ago. So there is a man called Rev. John Whittier. So he is Pollyanna's dad. He died 2 weeks ago, leaving one child, a girl 11 years old. He left practically nothing else save a few books, for, as you doubtless know, he was the pastor of the small mission church and had a very meager salary. I believe he was your deceased sister's husband, but he gave me to understand the families were not on the best of terms. He thought, however, that for your sister's sake you might wish to take the child and bring her among your own people in the East. Hence, I am writing to you. So in this paragraph, second paragraph, it's clearly understood that now it shows her relationship, all that. It shows that Pollyanna's mother was her sister, Miss Polly's sister. And here it's also written that Rev. John Whittier had given, I will tell you who was the writer, Jeremiah O. White. So he had told this man that the family was not on the best of terms. So this shows that they were not on the best of relationships and all that. But he's thinking that for your sister's sake, you might want to take the child and bring her up among your own people in the East. That's why I'm writing to you. The little girl will be all ready to start by the time you get this letter. And if you can take her, you would appreciate it very much if you would write that she might come at once, as there is a man and his wife here who is going east very soon, and they would take her with them to Boston and put her on the Beldingsville train. Of course, you would be notified what day and train to expect Pollyanna on. Hoping to hear favorably from you soon, I remain. Respectfully yours, Jeremiah O. White. So here it's in the third paragraph, it's written that by the time you get this letter, the girl will be all ready to start. And if you can take her, we would very much appreciate it if you can send a letter to us telling that she can come at once. Because there's a man and his wife who are going east very soon, and they would take her with them to Boston and put her on the Beldingsville train. Of course, you would be notified what day and train to expect Pollyanna on. So all this information is giving here. So like when the girl will be all ready to start, who will drop Pollyanna on the buildings will train, and of course it's also written that she will be notified what they are trying to expect Pollyanna on. So now this letter is over. Now Miss Polly, she had a frown on her face. She folded the letter and tucked it into its envelope. She had answered it the day before, and she had said that she would take the child, of course. She hoped she knew her duty well enough for that, disagreeable as the task could be. So this Miss Polly, as you can see, is not very happy upon hearing this letter, like we want the child to come here. She's not very happy about it. She doesn't basically want a child to come and live with her, which explains what that Rev. John Whittier said to Jeremiah O. White, that the family was not on the best of terms. Now, here after this, five paragraphs is given, which is all about the life and her past, her sister's past, everything, marriage, everything is given here. So with that 5 paragraphs, this chapter ends. So I would definitely like to explain it to you. So now, first paragraph. As she sat now with the letter in her hands, her thoughts went back to her sister, Jenny, who had been this child's mother, and to the time when Jenny, as a girl of 20, had insisted upon marrying the young minister in spite of her family's remonstrances. There had been a man of wealth who had wanted her, and the family had much preferred him to the minister, but Jenny had not. The man of wealth had more years as well as more money, whereas the minister had only a young head full of youth, ideals, and enthusiasm, and a heart full of love. Jenny had preferred these, quite naturally, perhaps. So she had married the minister and had gone south with him as a home missionary's wife. So in this paragraph, they have explained that the name of the child's mother, Pollyanna, her mother, name is Jenny, and when that Jenny had insisted upon marrying a young minister, she was 20 years old, only 20 years old at that time. There was another man, to be sure. He was a man of wealth. He had more years, more money, everything. Whereas this minister had only a young head full of youth, ideals, and enthusiasm, and a heart full of love. But to a rich man, Jenny had preferred the minister. And it's also written here quite naturally. So maybe this was her nature. So she had gone south with him as a home missionary's wife. So next paragraph, the break had come then. Miss Polly remembered it well, though she had been but a girl of 15, the youngest at the time. The family had had little more to do with the missionary's wife. To be sure, Jenny herself had written for a time and had named her last baby Pollyanna for her two sisters, Polly and Anna. The other babies had all died. This had been the last time that Jenny had written, and in a few years there had come the news of her death, told in a short but heartbroken little note from the minister himself, dated at a little town in the west. In this paragraph is written as Miss Polly's age at that time. She had been a girl of 15, the youngest at the time. She was the youngest at the time, only a girl of 15. But even now, she remembers it. Now, when you don't know her age, you must not be quite surprised. But when I tell it to you, you will definitely be surprised. And also, perhaps you would like to count how many years. So, now the family had, of course, the church family had little more to do with the home missionary's wife. So, Jenny had herself written at a time and had named her last baby as Pollyanna after her two sisters, Polly and Anna. So there were not these two sisters only, there was another sister, Anna. So she had named her on both of them. The other babies, what happened? Everybody has died. Okay. So next, this was the last time that Jenny has written. After that, in a few years, the minister himself wrote that my wife had died. He wrote that in a short note, but it was heartbreaking. Dated in a little town at the best. Next paragraph. Meanwhile, time had not stood still for the occupants of the great house on the hill. Miss Polly, looking out at the far-reaching valley below, thought of the changes those 25 years had brought to her. 25 years it has been. This is what it's written here. And time had not stood still. So why they have told time had not stood still, you will understand that in the next paragraph. She was 40 now and quite alone in the world. Father, mother, sisters, all were dead. For years now, she had been sole mistress of the house and of the thousands left by her father. There were people who had openly pitied her lonely life and who had urged her to have some friend or companion to live with her. But she had not welcomed either their sympathy or their advice. She was not lonely, she said. She liked being by herself. She preferred quiet. But now. So, here this paragraph ends. Now it's written here, her age. She was 40 now. And she is completely alone in the world except for her niece. So that's why I've written quite alone. So father, mother, sisters, everybody dead. So she had been the sole mistress of the house for years now, and the thousands left by her father. That means they are a very rich family. There were many people who had openly pitied her lonely life and who had told her, you have some friend or companion, you can live with them. But she had not welcomed either their sympathy or their advice. I am not lonely, she was telling. She liked being by herself. This shows that she preferred quiet. But now, next paragraph. Miss Polly rose with frowning face and closely shut lips. She was glad, of course, that she was a good woman and that she not only knew her duty but had sufficient strength of character to perform it. But Pollyanna, what a ridiculous name. So here this paragraph ends with this. Here they have explained that Miss Polly was rising with a frowning face and closely shut lips. She was glad, of course, that she was a good woman and she knew her duty also. Not only knew her duty, she had sufficient strength also to perform that duty. But Pollyanna, what a ridiculous name. Like that, this lady is thinking. With this, chapter 1 ends. Now, let's go to chapter 2. Come with me. Before going to chapter 2, let's take a short break. I'll meet you in some time. So friends, as you saw, Today we did a book review on the story Pollyanna in chapter 1.